I think that there are some truths coming to our community that I think there's multiple reasons why people are insulin resistant. Some people truly are building insulin resistance because of poor lifestyle, but there's a subsection of people that's not what's happening. It's maybe environmental exposures. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a medication we took. Maybe it's an infection we had or a virus we had that actually caused damage in our digestive system. And because of the damage, the hormones are not communicating. So there's more to the insulin resistance picture than just lifestyle. And that is a hard thing for some people to swallow because we really want to believe that if we just clean everything up, it's going to fix everything. But some people need more tools in the toolbox.
Welcome to Meat Matters with Jenny Mitich, your go-to podcast for everything related to animal-based lifestyles and optimizing your metabolic health. Today's interview is with Adrian Gledhill, a former Biggest Loser contestant who has tried everything to get her weight under control. She had gastric bypass a few years ago, and then starting about 2 years ago, she started doing the carnivore diet. But even with carnivore, she was still having a hard time keeping that weight under control. She has now incorporated a GLP-1 and has finally hit her weight loss goal. And she's seen so many other improvements besides just the weight loss. I wanted to have her on today because GLPs are a topic that aren't really talked about too often in the carnivore community. I do know a few people in this community that have tried literally everything under the sun and they just can't get the weight off. And I wanted to talk to Adrian about her experience in the hopes that maybe some of these people that have been trying everything, they'll hear this and they'll be like, maybe I can start to incorporate this and it'll be helpful. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to take your support a step further, be sure to leave a 5-star rating in whatever podcast app you're listening on. The more positive ratings we have, the more this important information will be pushed out to the people that need to hear it. And with that, let's dive into this interview with Adrian Gledhill. Adrian Gledhill, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me and for talking about this controversial topic.
Yeah, it really is controversial. I personally didn't really know much about GLP-1s until, probably about a year ago. And at first I was just like, no, they're bad. But as I've learned a little bit more about it, I've relaxed my views a bit on it. And I do think there is some utility to them in certain cases and for a lot more people than I originally thought. So we're going to talk about all of this today. This is quite the controversial topic. But for those of you that don't know you, can you give me a background just of your weight loss journey and everything that you've gone through in your life?
I've been overweight my whole life, even as a little girl. And I mean, there was a pretty traumatic upbringing of just being bullied for being overweight. Everybody trying to put me on a diet because I've always been the big kid. In the school, I was usually in the top 3 for size. In high school, I turned that into playing 3 sports and, morning and afternoon workouts, restricting food, still struggling with my weight, never really getting out of the 160s. And in our day, that was considered kind of big. When I went to college, the gates just flooded right open and I didn't gain 15, I gained 60. And after I came home from my first summer of college, my stepmom and I went on the Atkins diet and I lost 30 of those pounds. But the second I went back to college, they all came back. I remember going to Europe and studying abroad in the Czech Republic and being the biggest person in Europe. So there's always been this elephant on my shoulder, or I guess literally the elephant in the room, I guess you could say would be me. And I just have struggled with this weight. It's not because I didn't want, it's not because I was not trying. I feel as I look around, I feel I've always eaten healthier than everyone around me. And I've also tried to be active my whole life, doing all the right things. They just never seem to work. And so one of the things I tried was I got picked for the TV show, The Biggest Loser. We talked about that, I think last year you had me on. And I was successful with the restricting and the heavy exercise. And I lost 66 pounds. But before the show even ended, I already started struggling with just the food noise and the weight gain. And within a year, I'd gained 100 pounds after the show. So my whole 20s, I spent almost 300 pounds. I was in the high 200s my whole 20s, despite having this awesome opportunity of The Biggest Loser. And after I had my first 2 kids, I had gotten up to 330 pounds, which is 100 pounds more than I even started on The Biggest Loser. So it's 170 pounds more than my lowest on The Biggest Loser. And I was I had had enough. So that's when, ever since then, I think I was 29, now I'm 41. that's when I had had enough. And I'm like, I'm literally going to do anything so that I stop struggling with this. Like, I can't live like this. I cannot be 330 pounds. So the first thing I did was go back to running and restricting. I started running 5Ks and half marathons, and I have all these Facebook stories popping up of me portioning my food. Look at my good work. Here's my vegetables and my lean meats, and for the whole month. And I did the crock pot thing. I don't know if you ever did that, where you prepare like 3 months worth of crock pot meals so that before you go to work, you just throw it in the crock pot and you come home to this whole food meal for the whole family. And so I did tons of work, tons and tons of work, and I got 100 pounds off. So I'm back down to 230 and my weight just starts coming back on. So that's when I was like, that was my first time where I was like, there has to be something wrong because I am working so hard and I'm drowning and I'm gaining my weight back. I'm back in the 240s. So that's when I reached out to some Biggest Losers. I said, what are you guys doing? Because some of them had gotten skinny again. Like, people don't necessarily say, hey, look at me, I gained all my weight back. You just won't see those people anymore. But you do start seeing the people pop up that got skinny again. And I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, gastric bypass. So since gastric bypass, that wasn't really the ticket for me. It actually flared my autoimmune. I've had chronic anemia ever since. I've had chronic reactive hypoglycemia, where if I eat any carbohydrates at all, my body inappropriately responds with insulin, way too much insulin, and it's like a prolonged insulin. And then like the glucagon, I don't know if people know about all these hormones, but your audience is super informed, so I bet they do. The glucagon never comes in to save the day. And so I just stay low until I bring it back up. You have to bring it back up with sugar. You can't really bring it back up with like meat. So if I eat a banana, my blood sugar comes up, back down. Anyway, it took me 9-10 years to find the carnivore diet where I just was reducing and reducing and reducing, trying to figure out the trigger foods that were causing this reactive hypoglycemia because it was ruining my life. Like, there were episodes where I passed out where I was driving and it hits you like this. There's no warning. It hits you within a split second. You feel it go whoop. And I knew to pull over, called my parents, and then I passed out and they came and got me. Like, this was like very, very serious. People that have at my level end up with feeding tubes and chronic seizures and even die. So I had to do something. So praise the Lord. Not praise the Lord. I got very sick. I got chronic illness, like chronic inflammation. And I didn't know what was happening. Like, my arms and legs were going numb and I was having food reactions and brain issues and fatigue. And so not only am I having this reactive hypoglycemia, but I'm having all these health issues. And that's when someone said, why do you keep eating the green beans? Just get rid of them. Do you know plants have all these inflammatory properties, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you try the carnivore diet? And that was just over 2 years ago. And that really changed so much for me on top of the friendship, you know? So that is my history with there. I don't know if you want me to keep going. The carnivore diet was amazing for the reactive hypoglycemia. There is no other treatment for reactive hypoglycemia, period. There's medications that can help, but it doesn't nip it in the bud the way just avoiding, if you're not giving something to trigger it, it just doesn't get triggered. It's also helped me with my food reactions. It's helped me process some things. It's helped me. I always have had it in my soul that the reason I struggle with my weight is because of me. And so it really gave me things I could physically work on to just show myself if I could do it or not. And unfortunately for me, I just continued to struggle with my weight. It was like being thrown off of a boat or a ship. And I'm a really hard worker, so I can sit and swim for a really long time, but my head would like duck under the water and then I'd be like, I still got this. And then my head would duck under the water and I'd join another challenge. I still got this. And I just never really had it, which is why I never became a carnivore coach. I never did any of those things because the weight piece for me never seemed to stick. So that's where we had started investigating other things.
Yeah, I mean, you do work very hard. For anybody out there listening, like, Adrian is one of those people. She's super gung-ho. She and I have a lot in common. We're the same age, kind of similar-ish lived experiences. We both are moms. And she works her butt off on these things. So when she's saying that carnivore alone wasn't working for her, that's not fake. That's real. So you're struggling still with your weight. You were able to get into what, like the 150s, 160s with carnivore?
Yes, but every time I would take a breath. So how I got there was I was doing a lot of fasting. I tracked everything. I was walking like 12 to 15 miles at least 5 days a week. I was lifting weights. I did the sardine fasting quite a bit. I almost want to say I've sardine fasted more than anyone on earth, except Dr. Boz just had a lady that did it for like 90 days or something. So I definitely don't have the crown. And then I did the Lion diet for almost 2 months, and none of it in the middle of Lion diet, like 35 days into Lion diet, my body just shut down. And that is where it was like heartbreaking for me, because I was convinced without a shadow of a doubt that if I just worked carnivore hard enough, this was going to be the ticket for my weight. And just every time I would take a breath, and being with the reactive hypoglycemia, I can't go back to eating plants. I can't go back to eating grains. I can't go back to eating sugar, or I will literally pass out and have seizures. So I'm a strict person. And I just, even strict carnivore, kept bouncing into the 170s and 180s, which I realize some people will go, well, that's not so bad. Except that for a person who's 5'4", that's a BMI of 31, 33. That's obese.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. Just, I want to say, for a lot of people, if they did everything that you did, it would be effective. But there was something else going on with you, specifically in your lived experience, where carnivore alone just wasn't enough. So when did the GLP-1s come into your awareness?
Dr. Amy Horniman had a podcast. Well, first of all, I'd had some friends in the carnivore community who'd actually sent me some podcasts here and there and just questioned. I mean, we all typically in our community, we're the people who question everything. So when you hear other functional people saying, hey, did you know that these actually work on the brain? So people had been sending me stuff here and there, but every single time I was like, no, there's no such thing as a quick fix. There's no such thing as the pharmaceutical companies coming in to save the day. I was always like, absolutely not. I recently had to go through and like clean out my social media because I had posted so many anti-GLP-1 things, because for us, it really doesn't make any logical sense that there would be something that could come in and help people. Usually it's just, and then you see people and you see them eating cake and drinking wine and taking a GLP-1 and losing 100 pounds, and you just go, ooh, So what changed, though, was Dr. Amy Horniman, who we both love and adore and respect. And one of my things that I've been working on, when Lion Diet didn't work, I got serious about working with functional medicine on my hormones and my thyroid. So I follow her podcast, and she talked about all of the amazing things that it actually works on and what it actually is. And what I loved about her podcast was she said, yeah, I even tried it. And I was like, whoa, if Dr. Amy Horniman would try it, maybe it's not poison. So that's what turned me around, was Dr. Amy Horniman.
Okay. And I think I listened to that podcast too, because you sent me your playlist of GLP related videos to listen to. And I'll be honest, when you first sent me that playlist, I was like, oh geez. Oh, but I did listen to it because you're my friend. And I'm glad that I did, because I learned a lot from that podcast too. And the funny thing about what she started with was like a really high dose, and she had some side effects, but then she moved down into microdosing, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because there is some differences. I am happy to announce that my new book, Complete Carnivore, is now available for pre-order. Complete Carnivore is an in-depth guide to the carnivore diet, along with 80 plus carnivore recipes. And they're not just like cooking meat recipes. There's recipes for carnivores at any stage of their journey, and it definitely helps you mix it up a little bit if you're getting bored on the carnivore diet. When I was writing this book, I was really aiming to make this like the encyclopedia of the carnivore diet, and I am super excited for you to read it. Pre-sales are a huge deal for any first-time author, so if you'd like to show your support for me in any way, please consider pre-ordering this book. I will put the links in the show notes. Amazon and Barnes & Noble both have really good pre-order deals, where you will get the lowest price the book ever was from the time that you pre-order it to the time it's released. So let's say, for example, example, Amazon has a flash sale on my book and you've already pre-ordered it, but then it goes down in price to like $20. Well, on release day, you will pay that $20 lowest price because you had already pre-ordered the book. Also, the book typically ships on release day, so you get it right away. Let's get this book onto every bookstore shelf in America and share the healing power of the carnivore diet with the world. Pre-order links are in the show notes, and I thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you a question about, like, what was the weight of the decision to try a GLP-1 like for you? Because I can imagine it would have been scary, just thinking about some of the backlash that you might receive because you are a public figure. You have your YouTube channel, you have all of these different social media aspects to it. How scary was that for you to even try a GLP-1? Did you think that people were going to judge you for it?
This could absolutely bring me to tears. At first, I wasn't even going to tell my husband, which sounds crazy, but I work with people now, and it's not an uncommon thing where women see the value in it and they want to get that message to the people they love, but they don't necessarily, they're where I was a year ago. And so I did end up telling my husband, and he said, don't tell a soul. Well, I'm a blabbermouth. So a week later, I told my best friend. So I didn't do this alone per se, but I did the first 3 months. First of all, nothing ever seems to stick with me. So why would I lose all my friends if it's not even going to work? So I really waited 3 months before saying a word. But once you give it a try and you actually realize what it is versus what you think it is, then all the shame melts away because it's really not what people think it is. I don't know if you're a God person, but I prayed on it. And one day I just had the motivation to just say, do you know that this is actually pretty wonderful? It has been kind of rough, but it's also been wonderful because so many people in our community do question things. So many people, ours is very functional, where we typically look at people's symptoms and we try to work on the root cause of those symptoms. We don't deny their symptoms. And so it's actually been pretty wonderful. Now, are there some men in our community who have their feet stuck in the mud because carnivore works perfectly for them? Yes, but there are a lot of women specifically who really relate to my story. And so it's really actually been quite wonderful. Before I came out, I actually called some of my friends and I wanted to hear from the big people what was going to be the pushback. And I was pretty shocked that I got almost zero pushback. And a lot of people were like, that is super interesting. Where do I dig in and learn more? And so I've been super grateful for truly the open-mindedness of most of the people in our community.
That's good. I was a little bit scared for you, but I also had some faith that, it wasn't going to be screw Adrian, blah, you know what I mean? But you have some serious balls to do that. And I appreciate that you were honest with yourself. You've tried literally everything. And this was just another thing that could potentially bring you to full health. And I think when you think about it that way, it's not just what people will think of you or anything like that. It's about how you feel and how you live your life on a daily basis. And if it could get you to that next level, that's a big deal. When you were just talking, you talked about a lot of people not really understanding what GLP-1s are. Can you talk a little bit about what they are and what they do in your body? Because I don't think a lot of people understand that. I think they just think it's just a weight loss drug. But what is it really?
I want to go back to one thing. The main reason I actually went on this was because of my autoimmune conditions. My autoimmune is so strong that I am having a hard time living in buildings. I'm so sensitive to environmental toxins. I'm so sensitive to building material, to scents, to water damage, that we have moved 5 times in the last 2 years, and it's been really hard on my family. And so at some point, my husband said, I know you want to go the natural way, but we're going to need some support here to boost your body up and improve your immune system so that we can just function as a family, because this is destroying us financially, emotionally, and in all the ways. So what this actually is a string of amino acids. And when you string them together, it's called a peptide. If you string enough together, that's a protein. And so what it actually does, it acts like a hormone in your body We take testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. We'll take bioidentical hormones because another thing our society is very deficient in these days is hormones for some reason. So this is very hormone-like, and it actually stimulates your hormone receptors all over your body to start communicating again. So unlike a drug that may go in and cause your, let's say, insulin to not release in hopes that you can lose weight and stop storing it, this actually goes and orchestrates your hormones to start communicating. It helps the gut communicate with the pancreas, and it helps communicate everything to your brain. One of the reasons that so many people have this inappropriate brain signaling, which some people would call addiction, now the most popular term for it is food noise, is because the signaling isn't getting to the brain that you are nourished, you are full, you have fed yourself. And when your brain never gets that, it just keeps saying, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. For me, that was like every 5 to 10 minutes. And it wasn't always positive, I'm hungry. It was also a lot of negative. No, you don't need to eat. No, you already ate. How dare you? You've eaten. This is why you're so overweight. Like the food noise isn't just eating. It's also about anti-eating. And it's inappropriate food noise. So when we get these signaling back online and your body can tell, oh, we ate lunch, we're good now. Everything just seems to work a lot better. So when these hormones are communicating, it seems to improve all the other hormone communications as well. So you'll see people with PCOS and different hormone issues start to get relief with these chronic hormone signaling problems. So it really is hormone-like, and it just gets your body working again. So with the autoimmune people, because our hormones are communicating, we start having reduced inflammation and just kind of relief around our body. We see people, I'm skipping ahead, but there's just so many things when your hormones are communicating that start functioning well again, and we see downward reduction in disease in all over our body.
Okay. So I want you to walk me through what the process of taking the GLP-1s was like for you, and then talk a little bit about what your results have been.
So for some reason, I started on the starting dose, which is not what I advise people in our group. I advise that we start maybe a half or a quarter of the starting dose just to see your body. A lot of people who are already doing all the right things, they can get so much relief on low doses.
So what was the starting dose, and which one did you use?
I started with tirzepatide because it said that it was better for women over 40 with the added hormone piece. So it's GLP and GIP. And so it even further reduces your inflammation than just semaglutide. And if people don't know, semaglutide is the generic name for Ozempic, which is for diabetes, or Wegovy, which is for weight loss. There's a newer one called tirzepatide that has an added piece in it, the GIP. The name brand of that is Zepbound and Mounjaro. And I forget which one's for which. I want to say Mounjaro's for weight loss and Zepbound's for diabetes, but I might have those switched. So I started with tirzepatide, and the starting standard dose is 2.5, and that's what I started with.
Okay. What happened?
It was totally fine. For my husband, that was poison. And this is where we get into the problems, is that everybody's so different. Now, my husband started almost 290 pounds, and he's 6'4", and I'm 5'4", and started at about 180. So you would think it would have been the opposite. Especially, I eat a lot of meat, and he does not. So you would have thought it would have been the opposite. So this is where the dosing is so important. So I started at the starting dose. I don't have any troubles eating food. I don't have any nausea. I don't have any acid reflux. I don't have any diarrhea or constipation. I feel really blessed that it just was fine. So I immediately, week 1, 10 pounds of inflammation came off. I just peed and peed and peed and peed. And I think month 1, I lost like 25 pounds. So there's probably 15 pounds if you take the inflammation off. And then I felt like, well, this is way too fast. So what I learned was all those carnivore hard things that I was doing, if my body's actually communicating, I don't have to do them so hard. And I actually look at it now as a huge stressor to the body. So When I came out the gate, I did like very low fat. I tracked everything. I was ranging between like 1,100 and maybe 1,400 calories. I was walking all my miles. I was doing all my lifting, and like the weight came off way too fast. So month 2, I leaned into appetite suppression days and maybe was down in 11 to 1,400. And then when I didn't have it, I was eating around 1,800 to 2,200 calories. So I'm still dipping into a deficit, but dipping back out. I'm still exercising, tracking, weightlifting. And I still was losing tons of weight. Like I think month 2, I lost 12 pounds or something.
So at that point, after you started with the 2.5 milligrams in month, did you do that all throughout month 1? And then in month 2, did you lower it? Like what did you do with your dosaging at that point?
So month 1, I played around with going lower, and it really didn't work for me. And this is where I've really dug into why are some people more sensitive and some people are not. There was something off with me. When you have gastric bypass, I guess because we skipped so much intestine and we dig right into the piece of the intestine that's heavy in GLP-1 production, we overproduce GLP-1. And over time, over 10 years, I guess, a lot of people become less sensitive to GLP-1. So I think the surgery has a piece. And then the second piece is this chronic inflammation that's just causing my hormones to just struggle to communicate. I'm working with someone on the root cause of the inflammation. I'm hoping to get that down. But when you're chronically inflamed, you just aren't as sensitive to the product. So month 2, I went up 0.5 here and there, 0.5. So the normal thing to do would go 2.5, and then on week 4, you go to 5. It took me, I think, 8 to 10 weeks to get up to 5. So I did it really, really slowly. And I continued to lose weight. I continued to have the anti-inflammation. Things just, it's just amazing when your hormones are actually communicating that you get results for your work. Where before I'm doing all this sardining and I'm doing all this, and like the scale is moving 5 pounds, but then not moving 5 pounds. You know, like I would see it move, but then it would stop moving and it would go back up.
So it's pretty remarkable. So you did this for 3 months before you told anybody on a large scale about it. So talk about a little bit so how long have you been doing it now?
So I started in September. So that's 8 months.
Okay, 8 months. So what does the GLP dosing look like now compared to the beginning? Because you're now at your goal weight, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I was just talking to Danny Conway, and we can always work on muscle. So from here on forward, it's really about muscle, and I really wouldn't need to lose a pound. If I could trade fat for muscle, that would be great. But I'm feeling great. I'm wearing a size small. I can fit a size 4. This is great. This has never happened. Recently, my lowest weigh-in was 131, where Biggest Loser, high school, gastric bypass, I could barely maintain the 160s. So yeah, it's been amazing. I've been researching this quite a bit, and we do not want to stimulate those GLP-1 receptors hard, long, but you do want to get to your goal, and then you want to stay at a therapeutic level for a little bit to create a new normal in your body, and then start working on if you can taper off, which I'm already seeing signs that I can. So for me, my highest dose was I was taking 6 every 5 days. Now, that didn't last long. It was just way too much. So then I did a couple months of 5 every 5 days. I'm feeling I don't know, for a while that was fine. I've always been able to eat my meat. I've always been able to eat at least 2 meals a day and a snack. I've always gotten at least 120 grams of protein because I eat the same thing every day. So that's how I know. So it's never been a problem to get my protein in, but I still have it in my heart and my mind that the lowest effective dose is what's going to be best for the receptors and for my body. So I recently moved down to 3.5 every 5 days. And my hope would be, as my body continues to acclimate, I can continue to move down. Whether or not I go off completely is dependent upon if I can get to the root of this inflammation. Because like I said, I lost 10 pounds of inflammation in 1 week. I am a very inflamed person, and the inflammation is causing my hormones to not be able to communicate, not get good sleep. It affects your thyroid. It affects your overall energy when you're just having this chronic inflammation.
Right. So you have Hashimoto's, we both do. How has that affected like fatigue levels and things like that?
That is a tough one. So I'm working with a hormone specialist, and our group has a hormone person that we work with. And I'm still just trying to work on what is the right T3 for me. We're also working on the BHRT. It's just a tough one when I'm such a sensitive person because those hormones have been off for so long that my receptors are super sensitive. So that's something we're still working on. As far as the GLP-1, I mean, I feel like my brain is more clear. I feel like I have more good days than I ever have. When I started this, I was still living in a townhome because we had a lease that we were stuck in that had like 1,000 times the black mold that's safe for any human to live in, let alone someone who's sensitive to it. And despite continuing to live in that black mold because of this GLP-1 and other peptides, this is a family of thousands, I've been able to keep my inflammation off and start feeling better and get my brain back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I always wonder about, because for me with the Hashimoto's, my main symptom is the fatigue. Like every day, even if I get a full 8 hours of sleep, everything, I mean, I'm dialed in, I'm strict with carnivore. I wake up and I just feel like I haven't rested. Like right now, I'm so tired. So I'm always curious, like with adding in a GLP-1, getting my thyroid meds correct, because we're still playing around with T3. We might have to add in some T4 or something like that. I have some blood work on tomorrow that we're gonna see. But I wonder if just maybe a very, very low dose of a GLP-1 would help with that.
I think it could help, but it definitely isn't a substitute for thyroid and hormone. Like, and people will say, you know, it's very rare actually in our group to have someone say, hey, this isn't working. I thought you said this was going to be amazing, because the people in my group are doing so many other amazing things. But if the GLP-1 isn't working, it might be because they need to have their thyroid and their hormones. So they need to get some support for those things as well. They work really well together, but they're not a substitute for each other.
Okay, so they have to work in conjunction. That's good to know. That is very good to know. I wanted to talk a little bit about the standard dosing versus microdosing. Dr. Amy talks about this. Dr. Tina, what was her name? Dr. Tina
Moore.
Dr. Tina Moore. She also talks a little bit about this. So the standard dose, 2.5 milligrams, go up to 5, go up to 7.5. It's different for the semaglutide and for other ones, but that's pretty much a standard dosing. What is a microdose, and how would that work for somebody that wants to give this a shot?
Microdose, like truly, is 1/10 of the starting dose or less. So I don't know if there's that many people microdosing. A lot of people are low dosing, and I think that's great. So a low dose would be like, some people, what they're doing is taking 1/10 of the dose, but they're taking it 3 or 4 times a week. Well, now you're taking a low dose. If you add that all up, that's a low dose. So what is microdosing great for? Microdosing is great if you have arthritis, you have tremors, you have psoriasis, you have a health condition, but you really don't have much weight to lose. Like, weight isn't an issue. Those hormones are communicating fine. Then microdosing is great. I feel like a lot of people feel pretty therapeutic in a low dose. In our group, and I think it's because we eat so much meat, a lot of people are succeeding on low dose. There are going to be some people who do need more standard dosing. I think a lot of us have white knuckled our weight off, and so we don't qualify as someone who's insulin resistant, or who, like, nobody would look at them and go, ooh, you're obviously insulin resistant, because we've worked so hard to come down as far as we can. But some of us, like, just losing weight itself does not heal insulin resistance, in my opinion, based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't. You can be very thin and still be insulin resistant. My husband, we've got him down. Let's see. We got him down at the lowest to 215. So he's gone from 270 to 215. This is without any medications whatsoever. This is water fasting and carnivore. But the minute he starts eating again, and I'm talking carnivore food, not carbs, literally steaks, his blood sugar, boop, like this morning, it was like 160. 160. And he's not eating carbs. So we have to do the fasting. So it's very, very frustrating. There's some people that needs a little something else, you know, and I've come to learn that in the 2.5 years I've been in this world. It's more complicated than we think it is.
I think that there are some truths coming to our community that I think there's multiple reasons why people are insulin resistant. Some people truly are building insulin resistance because of poor lifestyle, but there's a subsection of people that's not what's happening. It's maybe environmental exposures. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a medication we took. Maybe it's an infection we had or a virus we had that actually caused damage in our digestive system. And because of the damage, the hormones are not communicating. So there's more to the insulin resistance picture than just lifestyle. And that is a hard thing for some people to swallow because we really want to believe that if we just clean everything up, it's going to fix everything. But some people need more tools in the toolbox.
I was one of those people. I was one of those people until my husband's experience and then my own, because I've been able to dip down, let's see, probably I think 147 is the lowest I've done. That was sardine fasting. But the minute I start eating again, I go right back up into the 150s. It doesn't maintain. I have a problem with gaining muscle, even though I strength train a lot. And I think that was testosterone related, and I've been working on that. But it's not just the hard work you do. And I liked your point about females having a bit more issues just in general with weight loss and all that stuff than men. You know, when we have babies, having the act of growing a child decimates your hormones, your thyroid, just everything. You put it all into that baby, and then, you know, it's gone. It's with your child now, which is good. You know, we want to have healthy babies, but also it's not talked about. You have to then refill that in some way. But how can you do that in the environment in which we live? You know, we're surrounded by microplastics and toxins and environmental factors and the food and just everything. And especially women in our age range, you know, that's when you start to see a lot of thyroid and autoimmune issues. And there's something going on, and it's so frustrating, you know?
Yeah, and something me and you have in common is having the kids later in life. And they are showing, you know, our hormones are already going down, and then we have these babies, and it's just a different place in life to be depleting everything. And it's harder to rebuild it when you're closer to 40 than when you're closer to 20. It's just a different thing. Now, I believe our bodies were made to have babies until we're 50. That's my personal belief. But there's something going on that's making it tough for our bodies to replenish that. I mean, we're seeing so this GLP-1 thing and these peptides are becoming, I think, not that far away. They're going to be considered perimenopause and menopause women's best friend because it assists with something that's really, really struggling. You hear it all the time, the perimenopause and the menopause women, they're like, I'm doing all the things, and they're continuing to gain visceral fat. That's what's crazy. I've been having the DEXA scans at Hack Your Health every year, and my visceral fat was going up despite eating so clean and being consistent with my exercise. My visceral fat was going up, which is an indicator that the hormones aren't communicating. These GLP-1s actually eviscerate visceral fat. It's amazing.
Yeah, visceral fat. I love DEXA scans. You know how I feel about the DEXA. I'm curious, have you been getting any DEXA scans during this GLP process so you can track your muscle growth or loss?
I had one at Hack Your Health last year. And then I just had one a couple months ago, a month and a half ago. And it did say that I lost some muscle. However, my understanding is with a person who's really inflamed, that's a lot of water in your muscle. And when you lose so much inflammation, isn't that coming off the muscle number? Because I've been eating my protein, I've been not eating in a deficit, and I have been lifting, and it did show some muscle loss. I don't remember what it was, 25% or something. I was kind of disappointed.
Well, you know, I think when you look at a DEXA scan, it's lean mass. It's not just muscle. So lean mass is the weight of your organs, your blood, your nerves, your muscles, any contents of your stomach, and any kind of fecal matter or things like that. So if you've lost a lot of weight, you're gonna have some loss of lean mass of any kind. So, I mean, if you lost, how much weight did you lose? 25, 30 pounds?
I've lost a total of 50 pounds.
Okay. So it's inevitable that you're going to have some lean mass loss just because you're not carrying as much weight around. But as long as you're feeling strong, you're doing the strength training and eating the protein, it should be fine in general. And now you can take that as your baseline and work on building the muscle mass.
I also use 2 separate companies. And so I just wonder if they're exactly the same, if they're using the same programming. Yeah, I just know I've been doing the right things to maintain muscle and also never trying to go much higher on a dose, because the higher dose you go, the higher they say your AMPK pathway throttles, and the higher that pathway is being throttled, the more likely you are to lose muscle. And so, there is some truth to the muscle loss on this peptide. The reason I don't think I'm hitting that is because I've never been at a dose where I couldn't eat meals. I've never been nauseous. I've never had any of those symptoms. So I feel like actually for me, even though it sounds like, well, Adrian's on a mid dose, for me, it's actually a low dose. My husband took 0.8, which is a third the starting dose, and he was nauseous and he could barely eat. He was eating once a day. So for me, it feels like he was throttling his pathways pretty high, even though his dose was so low, where that's just not how my body's ever felt on this medication ever. It depends on how your body is metabolizing it, how much is being absorbed, how long it's being absorbed, how fast your body's breaking it down. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah. It seems highly individualized, like so many things.
There is nothing like the rich, buttery taste of American Wagyu. But it's not just the delicious taste that American Wagyu cattle are known for. It's also their healthy fat profile. They're not like the Japanese Wagyu cows that are all fat and very little meat. American Wagyu cows are known for having more meat than their Japanese counterparts, but the extra fat content makes the flavor of the meat so much better. And if you're following carnivore or a low-carb lifestyle, you'll know that animal fats are integral for human health. I get my American Wagyu from Ozark Valley Beef in Edgar Springs, Missouri. Their cattle are ethically raised and live happy, healthy lives in the Ozark Valley region. These cows are all born, raised, and slaughtered within that same area of Missouri. And they are raised without antibiotics and live the bulk of their lives on pasture. Ozark Valley Wagyu's ground beef is to die for, but they also have amazing ribeyes, sirloins, chuck roasts, and so much more. If you'd like to try out any of Ozark Valley Wagyu's products, you can head to the link in the show notes and use code Jenny15 to get 15% off your order. And if after trying this beef, you're like, oh my God, I'm obsessed, and you want to keep ordering it, you can continue to use my code Jenny15 to save 15% every single time you order. Head to the link in the show notes to try this buttery, delicious American Wagyu steak today.
Can you talk a little bit about, let's say somebody's thinking about, they want to try this. They've already adjusted their food, because that's really important. You can't just be eating junk food and doing nothing, for exercise and then just take a GLP-1, because you will just lose a bunch of lean mass and you're going to gain all that weight back when you stop taking it. You have to dial in the diet. This is an adjunctive to diet and exercise. But let's say they've dialed that in. They're doing carnivore. They're exercising, they're doing everything right. They still have, 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose. What would your advice be to this person? How would they get started if they wanted to try this? What are best practices, I guess?
So the first thing I would do is go on my YouTube channel. This isn't a me promotion. There's a playlist on there called GLP-1 Experts. And I put together my favorite people that have been educational on how to avoid side effects, how to keep your muscle, and how to heal with this, how to use this as a healing tool. So that's the first thing I would do, is just get educated and just absorb as much of that as you can. There's not that many videos in there. It's like 15 videos. You don't have to watch all 15. You'll get the gist. But so just kind of know where you want to go. And it's going to help your mind to wrap around staying in a good place with this. It's so easy and it's such a slippery slope to want to just zap your hunger out. But you don't want to do that. You want to continue to have a hunger muscle. You want to never have an issue eating your meat. You want to eat plenty of meat. You don't want to get in a place where you're drinking protein shakes instead of eating meat because it's not as good of a protein. You really want to be able to nourish yourself. The lower you can stay, the easier it could be to cycle off of it. So you got to just keep those things in mind. Next thing would be, what provider are you going to work with? There are some reputable big box telehealths you can work with. And if you have any questions about that, reach out. I'm happy to share who I work with. But that's going to be only for people who qualify as obese or overweight or diabetic. If you're none of those things, we have a different provider that we work with who can get prescriptions for people who low dose, microdose, and are using it for all the other things. Whether or not you go with who I suggest, you want to make sure that they're using reputable pharmacies. Some red flags to me are that, it's hard because you don't know in the beginning what the big pharmacies are, but there's some big ones: Empower, Strive, Red Rock, Equita Pharmacy. There's some really big ones out there. They're basically following FDA standards because they don't want to be shut down, and they're serving people all over the country. Then there's these little mom and pop ones that are like, I don't know where they're sourcing from. There's been many times it's been caught that they're sourcing what's called research peptides and selling them as compounded. They're splitting vials, they're handing you syringes. To me, that's a red flag. If you're being handed syringes, that's not the best. What they're doing is charging you for a whole vial, but selling the same vial to 6 people to make money. If you can get name brand, that's amazing. It's really tough. Unless you have diabetes, it's really tough to get name brand medication right now. But the compounded from the big reputable pharmacies is very safe and effective, and literally tens of millions of people are using it. So that would be my advice. Start by arming yourself. Come follow my channel or my Instagram, and maybe join a group for support. These groups are popping up all over the place, and I even started one. Be sure that who you're getting your stuff from is a reputable place.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely don't want to get that back alley tirzepatide. No, don't do that. So once somebody they've got it, they're taking it, they've figured out a dose where they still have an appetite, they're able to eat the protein that they need to eat. What are your suggestions beyond that? Like, what should their workouts look like? What should their food look like? Other things like that.
So I really harp on people to continue to eat actual protein, like meat. If you have to supplement here and there, that's fine. Just maybe that would be an indicator that you might want to lower your dose, because maybe you're on too much if you can't eat meat. If you look at meat and you go, you might be on too high of a dose. Then, right now I suggest to people to lift weights at least twice a week. And I always think it's great to walk for your lymphatic system, your hormones, get the fresh air, get the sunlight. So honestly, here's the crazy part is, yes, I started a group to help people, but really once you get this in, it's like the easiest thing you've ever done in your life, because the work that you're doing actually works and you don't have to do the crazy things anymore. If you do, you might actually lose weight too fast and have to pull back on that like me. So it really is pretty simple. Just eat your protein, real protein, and move your body and live a good life. What's really weird is the freedom of no longer having that inappropriate food thought. I have so much more time in my day to get stuff done because I'm not circling the fridge constantly. I'm not circling the kitchen telling myself, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I'm not sitting here thinking about what am I going to eat for lunch. Lunchtime comes and I go, oh, it's lunchtime. Yay. Because I still love to eat. What am I going to have today? I'm going to have some salmon and eggs. Yay. You eat your meal and then you're just done with that. And then you move on and you get all your stuff done. And then it's dinner time and you're like, yay, steak time. And that's one thing. People really worry about the fat on GLP-1. And I'm finding that the fat people mostly have an issue with is like seed oils. It's like, I don't know if you've heard, people suddenly start not feeling well if they eat fried food. Personally, when I'm eating my eggs with cheese, my breakfast sausage that was cooked in butter, I have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. I really think when your hormones are communicating, people crave less junk food and they crave less of the fried vegetable oily stuff. So it really, for a lot of people, it motivates them to actually eat healthier.
Really interesting. I also wonder if once all of your hormones and everything is working the way it's supposed to, that your body more easily recognizes the poison for what it is with a seed oil,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That could be it as well. The last thing I can think of, like question-wise, is with cycling doses, like how long does a dose last? How often are people having to take this? Because it's not an everyday thing for most people, right?
So it really depends on each person. So there's going to be some people who have the perimenopause. They just need to get the weight off and they can just zoop the weight get the hormones to relax a little bit and communicate again. And then they just kind of teeter off of it and they're good. And it's a short-term thing. There was a lady I interviewed, Madison Loweth, and you can look her up on YouTube. And she's one of the people who after her second baby, she waited like a year or two. She just could not get the weight off. She did a short-term stint with this and it was off. Another great person is Dr. Lauren Fitz. It's actually Fitzgerald. She's on Instagram, Dr. Lauren Fitz, and she's a hormone and thyroid specialist. She too had the perimenopause weight, went on this and went off. Again, though, staying low as possible. Most people are taking these peptides every 7 days. The reason I switched to 5 is because semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, that has a 7-day half-life, so that makes a lot of sense. Tirzepatide, Zepbound, Mounjaro actually has a 5-day half-life, and you can kind of feel it, especially if you're a fast metabolizer like I am. So when I moved to every 5 days, it just worked better. I didn't have a whole bunch of low days. I have a lot better. Some people, what they do is they actually, let's say someone's really sensitive to it, but they're also having insulin resistance and hormone issues and tinnitus and other things that are happening. So they try the microdose every 7 days and it's really not working on some of their symptoms. They need more, but they also have some gut healing to do. So they're having some gastro issues if they move up. So what they do is they break the dose. Like let's say their dose is 1.5, which is less than the starting dose. They'll break it into 3 and they'll take it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So they can get up to a more therapeutic level for their symptoms, but not have the gastro issues. And over time, the gastro issues seem to be healing. So like I previously could not do dairy and I could not do any wheat. I know, I just said a swear word, wheat. But I've done some experiments. I drink dairy every day now and I have cheese with my eggs every day. Dairy is fine. I no longer gain 8 pounds at a time. I have done some experiments with wheat. The wheat was fine. There are other things I'm still sensitive to, like peanuts. I tried some peanut butter. It went very poorly. My neck froze. So there's still inflammation for some things. But over time, these definitely heal the gut. So how long should people be on it? So I suggest if your goal is weight loss and you've had long-term insulin resistance, like you've struggled with your weight your whole life, it's suggested that you get to your weight and you stay on some dose, even if it's a low dose, for 6 months longer, or maybe even 12 months longer, because you cycle cells. You know, Dr. Boz talks about the cell cycling. So if you go through several cycles of new cells, those cells that are coming in are used to your body being regulated. They're used to the low inflammation. They're used to the hormones communicating. So you can bring your body into a new normal if you just give it some time and then slowly taper off. If you're someone who has the autoimmune conditions, you might want to consider a low dose for a while just because of the anti-inflammatory effects. Another thing people consider low dose long-term is if your family has a history of cardiovascular disease, if your family has a history of Alzheimer's dementia, because this is preventative for that. There's a lot of things it's preventative for. So those are some of the reasons. And what people will do if they do it long-term is they'll either kind of try to stay low dose or they'll cycle. Like there's thousands of peptides, so you don't have to be on this the whole time. You could cycle onto something that also helps you, but off on an off period, and then cycle back on and off and on and off to keep the receptors active and not overstimulated and burnt out.
That's very interesting. You dive into this world. I've been watching some videos here and there, and it's just there's so much to it. So tell us where people can find you. Talk about your group a little bit too.
So you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and it's Adrian K. Gledhill. So every day I'm just kind of sharing my journey and little tidbits, or someone was fighting back with me and I respond with, my counter perspective on it. So that's kind of fun. And then if you need any support, I have a website, radicallyhealthy.com, and I have a free community. And then there is a private community. The free community has all the resources. We actually have a Facebook group as well. It's called Eat Meat, Lift Heavy GLP group. The problem with Facebook is that they censor this topic and we're not allowed to talk about a lot of things. And every day, groups are just deleted off the face of the planet. So I created radicallyhealthy.com so that people can just openly speak about, if they want to name their dose, it's not really relevant to other people, but go ahead and we can try to help problem solve based on experience and share things. If people need new providers, they need new resources, maybe they need a new source for their peptides, that's all there. And then on the private side, we have the 8 support calls a month, as well as I created a journal, and it has a carnivore meal plan that you dip into a calorie deficit and then out each week. And then it has 2 workouts a week, and you can either do them in the gym or at home. There's different variations with different equipment. And it inspires you to walk and drink your water and all the things. So that's where you can find that. If you need any support, radicallyhealthy.com.
Great. And I'm going to put links to all of that in the show notes of this episode. Like I said in the beginning, my beliefs and thoughts on this topic have definitely shifted and evolved. I see a lot of value in it. I don't think everybody should be on it. Not even the vast majority of people, but I think that there's some people that when they've tried everything else and it's not quite working, that this could be something that could get them where they want to be. So I commend you for talking about this and sharing your journey. And I hope that people get a lot out of this interview. I'll also put a link to that playlist that you talked about, because that's the one you sent me. And that's where I learned a lot. It's a really good playlist. I think people out there should definitely listen to that as well. So Adrian, thank you so much for your time. This is amazing. I love talking to you. And I'll see you in a few days at New Stock.
Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully the right people who just need one more tool, hopefully they hear this.
And thank you to everybody for listening to Meat Matters with Jenny Mitich.
I think an air fryer is a required kitchen tool for anybody following a carnivore diet or a low carb way of eating. The air fryer that I have in my kitchen is the Tasty. Tasty air fryer is a game changer. Not only does it go much higher in temperature than any other air fryer on the market, going up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, but it also has a built-in temperature probe, so you can get your meat cooked to the exact temperature you want every single time. Its sleek design is beautiful on your countertop, and it's also really easy to clean. Tasty just upgraded their basket to have a ceramic coating that is, as always, BPA and PFOA free, so you can rest easy knowing that you're not putting tons of toxic chemicals into your food when you are cooking it. Right now, you can save $30 on your new Tasty air fryer by heading over to tasty.net/Jenny Mitich and using code Jenny30 at checkout. Link and code is in the show notes.